Hello, and thank you for joining us today for the training Enhanced Donor Check-in and the Role of the Volunteer. As you may have heard, there's a specific go-live date when there will be an Enhanced Donor Check-in for donors at all American Red Cross blood drives and donor centers or fixed sites. Today we're going to review the Enhanced Donor Check-in process and the vital function you serve as a volunteer. Let's begin with a quick review of some of the equipment updates that have occurred in the past few years. You might have heard the term CERP. CERP stands for Collections Equipment Refresh Program. What we find is that the Red Cross has invested a great deal to bring our processes to the 21st century. Most recently, Stage 2 provided the donor tablets that you see here on the right-hand side. This Phase 3 or Stage 3 is rolling out across the country, region by region. It will take about a year to complete. It's a significant undertaking. It involves 8 hours of classroom training for our collections team members, training for other staff, donor recruitment, sponsors, and volunteers. Many of the changes are behind the scenes, but here you can see a new server and software, new donor identification process and check-in, a national database that's being searched for each donor, an improved transfer of data at the end of the blood drive, and ultimately we'll have new cases to move the equipment back and forth to blood drives. Today we're going to review the donor check-in and your involvement as a volunteer. The items that the new Enhanced Donor Check-in will provide is a streamlined self-scanning check-in process. Donors will be able to scan a donor ID, their driver's license or non-driver's ID, or even an active military ID. We'll be able to see a schedule of appointments up to 2 hours prior to the drive versus being printed a few days in advance. That should help cut down on the number of donors who made an appointment but are not on the printed schedule. It also will give us the ability to schedule and manage appointments at the drive. If a walk-in donor does come in, they'll be able to look to see what appointments are available still in the course of that day. And there'll be fewer paper tasks for volunteers to perform, providing greater opportunity to engage with the donors and provide great customer service. As you can see on the screen, we're also helping that it improves accuracy and speed, identifying donors, that we can keep a better track of how many people walk out of the blood drive. Again, the schedule is still not live yet. We're hoping that will come in stage 4 or 5, but the schedule is within 2 hours of the start time. And ultimately, we're hoping that this stage 3 enhanced donor check-in will reduce the inconsistent approach to walk-in policies at mobile blood drives. You may be asking yourself, why are we going to donor self-check-in? Doesn't that reduce the amount of personal contact a blood donor receives? But think back to the experience you have with self-check-in or check-out at airports, stores, banks, even restaurants. Successful check-in and check-out kiosks provide the pace an individual wants with the support they may need from an employer or, here at the Red Cross, from a volunteer. That support person has the ability to influence the interaction and help make this a great transition experience for customers, or in our case, blood donors. And as volunteers, you continue to play a critical role in the donor's experience, welcoming and assisting and answering any questions along the way. As in the past at American Red Cross blood drives, you will continue to provide great customer service, greeting, welcoming, and facilitating a positive donor experience. You'll encourage donors to schedule their future appointments. And as always, you'll be one of the primary people to be sure that the donor gets a thank you for coming in and contributing their life's blood. As you look at the list here on the slide, is there anything that you're not doing, or is some of it new to you? Ask your Red Cross team member if you'd like more information on any of the responsibilities that are listed here. As you can see from the list, your role remains a vital piece of the donor's positive experience. Let's now look at the updates in this reception and check-in role. Let's start looking at what the donors will see at a Red Cross blood drive. As we sometimes see currently, when the donor arrives, there will be a laptop to check in. In the past, there have been blood drives when there's not a donor check-in computer, and the volunteer or the donor ambassador would check things off on a printed schedule. With this new system, the donor check-in is an essential piece, and donors must sign in on the computer. Occasionally, as exampled by a bus, the check-in computer might be on the bus, but in most cases, it will be right at that reception desk. What's different for you as a volunteer is that you won't be doing the actual check-in. Donors, when they're able, should be doing it themselves. You as a volunteer are there to help as needed. Let's go ahead and walk through this and see how it works. The new Donor Quick Guide will be available at the reception desk, or you can request it from the charge person at the blood drive. The Quick Guide outlines for donors and for volunteers the changes in the new enhanced donor check-in process. It's hard to read on this slide, but step 1 says, read the welcome or stop sign. If there's not a hard poster of the stop sign, there will be a printout available and from the charge person and available to put at the reception table. Step 2 asks the donor to complete Rapid Pass or the pre-reading if they have not done that prior to arrival. A written copy of the pre-reading can be printed by the charge if the donor is not comfortable with a smartphone or tablet. The key is that these steps are done before the donor checks in on the computer. So this is where you play a critical piece in the check-in process. Again, greet the donor, ask them to read the welcome sign, ask if they've done Rapid Pass, and if not, guide them to the tablet where they can do Rapid Pass, which is option 1, or they can do the pre-donation reading, which is option 2, or request the paper copy. Either is fine. It's a little easier when you can see what this all looks like, as in this picture. It shows what the check-in desk will look like. The flow of activity goes from left to right. It's very similar to what you see now, except that the scanner is on a stand on the right-hand side of the laptop. This makes it easier for the donor to scan the ID that they're using today. Unlike in the past, you won't be holding that scanner. It's on a support piece that holds it up and holds it on. There's nothing you need to do with the scanner. Once it's set up, it will read the IDs automatically. We recommend that you do set the table up in a similar fashion so that it makes sense from the donor's point of view. Now that the donor has completed step 1 with the stop sign, step 2 of Rapid Pass or the pre-reading, they're ready to move on to checking in, step 3. This is the first screen that a donor sees with step 3. This is a touchscreen laptop, so the donor simply touches either the mouse pad or the screen itself, and it will come from asleep to awake, or it will go from this screen to the next. Note at the top of the screen that Espanol is an option. It's right under the word will. If this is clicked, it will switch to Spanish for those who need that. What we're going to do today is we're going to walk through one option where a donor has an appointment, uses his donor card to check in, and already has done Rapid Pass so that you can see just how quick this process is. This next step is asking the donor, how would you like to check in today? And the 3 options are using Red Cross donor ID, using a state issued or military ID, which is a license or driver's license, non-driver's license or military ID, or neither ID. It says tap here, and that will take them to a screen where they can enter their name and their date of birth. In this particular example on screen 15 or slide 15, the person has selected Scan Donor ID, and you can see that there's a box, and in that box it will capture the information that the scanner is pulling from the donor identification, the Red Cross donor identification. Typically, once that info is all gathered from the scanner, it will submit itself. If you click submit ahead of time, that works fine. It's not a problem. I do want to point out in the upper right-hand corner, there's a return to start button. And so if somebody said, oh, wait, I can't find my ID, then they can click that return to start and just start that back up again. And there's no problem doing that as many times as is needed. Once the identification is scanned, then the system will acknowledge who this is. In this case, the donor's name is Howard, and it says, hello, Howard, confirm your appointment information. And you can see here that it says in the center that it says platelets donation 4:30 p.m. If that's correct, and it's between 4:15 and 4:45, then Howard should click yes. He is accepting that time that he set up earlier. Once Howard clicks yes, that he accepted that appointment, the system will ask, again, like you did at the beginning, have you done Rapid Pass already? Have you completed Rapid Pass? He clicks yes and will then move on to the next screen. The last screen Howard will see is a thank you screen with a note to wait for a Red Cross team member to call Howard into the health histories. Name tags are available to the right of the scanner on the table. To ensure we're providing the very best customer service, we're going to use the name stickers to sort of triage the donor flow. Volunteers or donors will put the donor's preferred name and the current time on the name tag, so the time they've completed their check-in. If the donor is a walk-in, we add a W to that sticker. If a Power Red donor, we can put a Power Red sticker attached to the name tag. Based on the donor's given information or appointment type on the schedule is how you'll know if they're a Power Red donor. As we did prior to this new stage 3 rollout, the name tags will be placed on the table in order. One pile for scheduled or appointments, the other for walk-ins. The collections team members will come to that stack of name tags and call the next donor based on the name tag times. The updated volunteer quick guide, which will be seen at the end of this slide deck, explains this in step 4. A note about the name tags. Although the red and green name tags may still be available in your kit, you will only need to use one color. We're no longer separating them by red for returning donors, green for new donors. New name tags have been created and are being distributed as we run out of the old ones. Until they're available, the new ones, either the red or the green will work. If someone comes in and mentions that they're a first-time donor, you can make a little note on their name sticker so that the rest of the Red Cross team will understand. While the donors are waiting, please offer water or information on downloading the Blood Donor app if they've not already done so. Let's look at a couple more screens to see what they might look like. The next two screens are scanning driver's license and military IDs. When a donor scans their driver's license or military ID, a similar thing happens as the Red Cross ID. We'll see a series of dots or numbers, and then the donor or the machine itself will go ahead and submit that. I do want to point out some of the difficulties of scanning a state driver's license. Any driver's license ought to work in any state, so that's positive, but sometimes the barcodes are very close together as pictured on the right-hand side. The barcode that is to be scanned is the mottled or dots or paint spattered one versus the bars. Some states have two of these and they, as you can see, very close together. It's important that the donor scan the mottled one or the paint spattered one. It may mean covering up the barcode versus the mottled one, and sometimes having a sticky note or a piece of paper to do that will make that easier. If there is trouble scanning the ID, the donor can click Cancel and return to the sign-in page and click No ID, Sign In, and type in their name and date of birth. At that point, the name they're typing in should be the one that they typically use when donating blood. Here's the screen the donor will see if they click Neither ID. You can see that the donor types in their first name, last name, date of birth, and then they do need to click submit. One note about this is that the donors really do need to use the name they donated with in the past, particularly if a donor previously used their maiden name but is now married. They need to make sure to type in their maiden name. Then once they're in the health history registration, the team member will help get that squared away and get them registered with both names. Once the donor clicks submit, the following screen appears. As you can see, this confirms the donor's name and date of birth. Howard Jones, born on 4/21 of 03. If for some reason this is incorrect, like the date of birth might be wrong for Howard, then the donor would click close and try again. This screen shows what a walk-in would see once they've checked in by ID or name. Schedule appointment is across the blue bar. Then it says we don't find an appointment for you. Please continue and schedule your appointment now. And then it says choose the type of donation for your appointment today. So if we use Howard Jones, he's arrived and did do his rapid pass but does not have an appointment, then he would pick the type of donation. Typically in a mobile blood drive, it would either be blood or Power Red. And the platelet and plasma options would be seen when we're at a fixed site and not when we're at mobile drives. Once a donation type is picked, the available appointment times appear for the donor to choose. The donor then picks the appointment time that best fits their schedule from the appointment selection screen. The example here shows one appointment at 1 p.m. and two appointments available at 1:15. If a donor doesn't see an appointment time that suits them, they can click standby. This is the same as what we currently call a walk-in. As a walk-in, the name tag, the donor's name tag will read W. Walk-in donors will be called after all appointments have been taken. On a side note, if a donor made their appointment the same day of the blood drive, but after the 2-hour cutoff before the start of the drive, their appointment may not show up in the system. For example, a blood drive starting at noon, the donor made a 4 o'clock appointment at 2 p.m. We consider this person as still having an appointment despite them seeing the message, "We don't have an appointment for you." The donor's appointment may still be available in the system and can be selected on this screen. If not, the donor clicks the closest appointment to their arrival time. If by chance there's no appointment close to the donor's arrival time, have them select standby, but do not write W on their name sticker because they are considered to have an appointment. Remember the screen that asked, "Have you done Rapid Pass?" If the donor replied no, this is the screen they'll see. It's really more of an educational or promotional screen to let the donor know how easy it is to complete Rapid Pass, shows the 4 steps, how to get started. It's just one more way to encourage the donor to do Rapid Pass in the future. We also, of course, have the small business card that talks about Rapid Pass. And if the donor's waiting a minute or two, that would be a great time to show them how to access that through the donor app. On this particular screen, the donor clicks OK, thanks, and we'll get the thank you screen. Let's talk for a moment about the mobile bus or self-contained unit. As a volunteer helping out at a mobile drive with a SCU, you would typically be inside with the waiting donors. With the new enhanced check-in process, you would have the donor tablets available if connectivity is working, and you might still have the printed reading material. For any donor who has not done Rapid Pass, you'll have them do the pre-reading either on the tablet or the printed material, or if there's time, have them do the Rapid Pass. Occasionally, the bus is too far away from registration to connect to the check-in laptops. If this is the case, donors would check in informally with you inside the building and then formally on the check-in laptops once they get on the bus itself. Now we'll spend some time on some of the exceptions to the donor flow process we've already discussed. There's a lot of detail on here, so I'll walk through it fairly carefully. If a donor arrives, has an appointment, and is more than 15 minutes early or 15 minutes late, then they can see if there's an available appointment close to their arrival time. If so, click that time and then go ahead, complete Rapid Pass if they haven't already, and check in. If there are no appointments close to the arrival time, the donor is considered a walk-in donor and gets a W printed on their name sticker. If the donor has the last appointment of the day and they arrive more than 5 minutes after the appointed time, so a 6 o'clock end time, they arrive at 6:05, they most likely will not be able to give blood that day, but check with the charge person. During the day, donors have a 15-minute window if they're running late, but the last donors of the day only have a 5-minute window. If the donor is a walk-in and they arrive 15 minutes before the end of the drive, and there are appointment slots available, then they probably will be taken. If there are no open appointment slots, they probably will not be able to donate that day. But please do check with the charge person just to be sure. The volunteer quick guides have been updated to show the new process with the 2 initial steps, moving to step 3, donor check-in. And then we've also included a new volunteer quick guide helping with the tablets so that the tablets have a step-by-step process and you understand what to do with them to encourage their use for both Rapid Pass or for the pre-donation reading. This concludes our training on the enhanced donor check-in process. But before I wrap up, I do want to say thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the work that you do to support other volunteers and the donors who come in and give their time for this life-saving mission. Thank you.